Hey guys, welcome back. This is the lecture number 30 from our bootcamp series. In the last lecture, we covered migration on a practice project with basic and details. And in this lecture, we will create our first resource controller. So, first, we need to understand the resource controller before creating it. Okay, so what is a resource? So any object that you want users to be able to access via URI and perform CRUD operations on can be thought of as a resource. In the real sense, it is generally a database table which is represented by a model and acted on through a controller. However, you can define a Rails resource even if you don't have table for it, but usually we should avoid this because it does not make sense to define a resource in routes if you don't have table for it, because you can't perform CRUD operation for that resource when you don't have table. So avoid defining resources in the routes when you don't have model and table associated with that resource. Okay, now defining your controller as a resource in route allows you to quickly declare all of the common routes for a given resourceful controller. A single call to a resource can declare all of its necessary routes for your index, show, new, edit, create, update, and destroy action. This is also known as resource routing. Okay, and this is, you can see the example on the screen, that how you can define your resource controller. So you just need to define resources and the controller name into the routes file. Okay, and if you don't define a controller as resources in routes, you need to create those routes manually. Okay, so for example, if you want to create a student, then if you don't make your student controller as resource controller, then you have to implement all the routes, like for creating a student, getting all the students data, getting specific students details, and updating students, editing students, and destroying student. You need to define all these routes manually. Okay, and every route generated for resource controller has an http word associated with it. But you need to remember one thing before creating the resource controller. Okay, you should name your controller as plural, just like its table for model. So if you have seen, when we generated our student model, then the student model is in singular form, but its table is in plural form. So for your student model, you have a table students. So now when you define resource controller for your student model, then it must be named as students. Okay, now let's create our first resource controller. So open the course project and create a controller into app controllers directory and name it as students controller. Okay, so let's open the project. Here is the project, and just go to the controllers directory and create a new file here and name this file as students controller.rb. Okay, and now implement this class students controller and inherit it application controller and just save it. That's it. This is for this lecture. Okay, so we have created our students controller. Now it's time to define its resources into the routes file. So open the routes file. Okay, so just go to the config.rb, a config folder, and open the routes.rb file. Okay, so we have only one path defined here, that is our root welcome page. Now you have to define your resources like this: resources and students. Now, if you want to see that what actions or what routes this resource will create for you, then just go to the terminal and open a new tab and run the. You need to run command Rails routes and grep students. So it will display all the routes that is created for the students. Rails routes grep students. So once these routes generated, you will see uh, routes for index action, routes for create actions, route for edit and update actions, route for delete actions, and every route which is generated by this resource has an HTTP word associated with it, like get, post, patch, and delete. Let's see this. So here you can see these routes. Students get route. So this is for index section, and the same students post as a post for create action, and new student route, edit student route, and student route that are associated for new, edit, and show action respectively. And all these routes are for get, uh, all these routes are as get actions, and update for patch, and destroy with delete. So you will see routes for seven actions, that is index, create, new, edit, show, and destroy. Here you can see two routes for update, that is a patch and put. So with update there are two HTTP verbs associated. We know them as patch and put, and both are used for updating the existing record on the server, and but both have a very minor difference, and we will look into that difference in coming lectures. So but for now, just try to understand that we will get seven actions, that is index, create, new, edit, show, update, and destroy. Now we have created our controller. So creating a resource controller is just like if you create it manually, so it is just like creating a normal controller. Just name it with your resource and define resources and your resource name into the routes.rb, and then inherit and then you can check the routes generated by rails for your resource, and that's it. Now in the next lecture we will start implementing actions for these routes or for this resource controller. Now it is the question time from this lecture. So the first question is that what is a resource controller? What do you mean by resource routing? How can you create a resource controller in a Rails app? What is the advantage of creating a resource controller? And the last thing, can you define a resource controller even if it does not have database table or model? So you can define, but you should not do that, okay, because it does not make any sense. Okay, so that's all from this lecture. In the next lecture we will understand how to populate dummy data for a resource using seed file. So thanks for watching this, and let's meet in the next lecture. Till then, tata, goodbye, take care, and stay safe.